Today I'm going to give you 7 practical lessons that I took away from doing a Daniel fast for 21 days. Let's get started. Please don't forget to subscribe for more videos on raising intentional children and living intentional lives. We publish a new video every Friday. Just a quick disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on the internet, so check with your medical provider before making any changes to your diet. Like always, everyone says this, I'm supposed to say this. Do that. Okay, so 21 days, fruits, vegetables, and a few whole grains. The Daniel fast wasn't easy, but I can't say that it was overly difficult either. And I'm always trying new challenges and new diets just to see for a certain period of time if I hear something about it, so I think my body has pretty much accepted the randomness of all of this. And I want to say first that whenever I did this fast, I felt great through the entire thing, so if you're looking for a way to improve your health, it's probably a good way to do it, on top of the other reasons. I've fasted before, but this was my first Daniel fast, and I journaled through the entire thing so I could capture all this information so I could take the practical lessons away and I could share them with you. But I specifically chose the Daniel fast for 5 main reasons. Number 1, I knew I wanted to fast. Number 2, I had never done the Daniel fast. Number 3, I wanted to see what a partial fast was like. Number 4, I knew it would be good for my spirit and my body. Number 5, I was having surgery, so a water-only fast wasn't the best option for my health. I learned a lot from the Daniel fast, but if you've already done the Daniel fast and you know everything it is, you can skip to the lessons. I'll put different chapters below so you can click on that and you don't have to watch this next part, because we're going to talk about pretty quickly what the Daniel fast is. The Daniel fast, if you haven't already figured it out, comes from the book of Daniel in the Bible. He was part of a group commanded by King Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and this group's mission was to teach literature and the language of the Chaldeans. I don't know how to say that. Chaldean seems right. In Daniel 1:5, we can see the king assigned them a daily portion of the food that the king ate, and of the wine that he drank. They were to be educated for 3 years, and at the end of that time, they were to stand before the king. Daniel resolved that he wouldn't defile himself with the king's food or with the wine he drank. Daniel said to the steward who the chief eunuchs assigned over him, "Test your servants for 10 days. Let us be given vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearance and the appearance of the youths who eat the king's food be observed by you, and deal with your servants accordingly to what you see." That's Daniel 1:12-13. The steward listened to Daniel, and he tested him and 3 other servants for 10 days on this. After 10 days, Daniel and the others looked healthier than the youths who ate the king's food. So the steward took the king's food away and gave them vegetables to eat. For practical purposes, you can think of the Daniel fast as kind of like a purified vegan diet. If you wanted to follow it to the letter, then you would literally only consume vegetables and water for however many days you choose to do the fast. I guess 10 days if you wanted to follow it to the letter. So later on in the book of Daniel we see, "In those days I, Daniel, was mourning for 3 weeks. I ate no delicacies, no meat or wine entered my mouth, nor did I anoint myself at all for the full 3 weeks." That's Daniel 10:2-3. So for 21 days, Daniel followed a similar diet to the 10-day diet he had done, but with less restrictions. So based on what they ate in those days and what Daniel avoided, it's commonly believed that you can eat the following. What do you eat on the Daniel fast? Like with anything that we know little about, this is completely open to interpretation. So prayerfully start this fast in the way that God would have you do it. That's my first recommendation. If you take out the food that Daniel avoided, these are the things that it's believed you can eat. Vegetables, all veggies and vegetable juice of any type. Fruit, all types of fruit and fruit juices, excluding processed juices, especially those with added sugar. Beans and legumes, all types of beans and legumes, but avoid anything canned with added salt. Whole grains, brown rice, oats, whole wheat, millet, barley, and any other natural whole grains. Nuts and seeds, raw is best, nothing with added sugar, salt, or other seasoning. The main struggle for me was foregoing all seasoning. So I'll admit that when I did this diet, I didn't forego all seasoning. I did have some seasoning. I tried to keep it as natural as I could, like using sea salt and things like that, but I didn't avoid seasoning entirely. But if you want the full effect and to actually do it like Daniel did, you should avoid seasoning. Also avoid all sweeteners, because sweeteners are purely added pleasantry, and I think that voids the rules of the fast. Of course, you need to avoid stimulants as well, like caffeine and nicotine, so even black coffee is forbidden on the Daniel fast. I'm not going to list out all of these foods because I assume you know what vegetables and beans and legumes and fruits and nuts and seeds are. But if you still want a complete set of guidelines, if you just like to have that structure, I'll put a link below to the article I did of this video, and I list out everything, and there's a graphic showing exactly what you can eat. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes of this video. Pun intended, but no, you can't eat meat. So here's 7 practical lessons I learned from doing this diet. I always learn something new whenever I fast and whenever I do anything that changes up my diet and routine, but I felt like I learned more this time than ever. And the first reason is probably why. Number 1, journaling during a fast will help you get the most out of it and helps you track your results. I journaled daily to write down what God was teaching me through this fast and what I was learning from the fast on its own. I also loosely tracked what I ate and mentioned the things that helped me along the way so I can come back to it if I decide to do this again in the future. So now with all these journal entries, I can look back and see what I was learning through the fast, which means I actually captured these lessons. So that was a first for me on a fast, to actually capture all the lessons I learned. But I recommend doing that. Number 2, breaking sugar addiction is like breaking chains of slavery. I knew I was addicted to sugar when I started this fast. One quick way to tell if you're addicted to sugar is just do a quick nationality test, and if you're American, then you're addicted to sugar. But there is substantial evidence that sugar is extremely addictive and that most people are addicted to it. So how addictive is sugar? According to an article published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, consuming sugar produces effects similar to that of cocaine, altering mood, possibly through its ability to induce reward and pleasure, leading to the seeking out of sugar. Effects similar to cocaine? That's pretty addictive. The average American's daily sugar intake averages 95 grams. That adds up to about 77 pounds per year. And that's been increasing every year, probably since whenever we discovered sugar. Every year since that, if I had to guess. I actually had headaches at first when I started this fast, and I think that was probably at least partially because of the sugar addiction. And I know it wasn't from the caffeine addiction, which I probably also was addicted to.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like a steaming cup full of an addictive drug in the morning.
But because whenever I first started the diet, I actually still drank black coffee for the first few days, and I still had those headaches. I was drinking black coffee because that was before I realized you're not supposed to drink black coffee. But once I broke that addiction, I slowly stopped craving sugar, so that was cool. And once I broke the fast, I actually had like a cheat day, basically, after I was done fasting. And I had Taco Bell, and I had a soda, and I usually would go back for a few refills if I was having a cheat day, and I couldn't even finish one entire large soda after the 21-day fast. It was just too sugary at that point. And after the fast, I completely broke all of my cravings for sweets that I had had before the fast. I'm pretty amazed that it only took 21 days to break that addiction, and it actually probably took much less than that because I stopped having the headaches and the cravings pretty early on in the fast. So I was able to break the bondage of sugar addiction, and you can too. So I would recommend, if for no other reason, doing the Daniel fast just to break your sugar addiction that you probably have. Number 3, you can fast for several purposes, but be honest about it. When I first decided to fast, I considered doing it for health purposes. Then I thought about the spiritual implications, and then I actually started to feel guilty for using a fast for health purposes and trying to say that I was also doing it for spiritual reasons to get closer to God. And I started to just feel some guilt and some shame about that. It was the checking to see if I was losing weight and if I was healthier and feeling better, but then also saying, oh, this is supposed to be spiritual. It's supposed to be getting closer to God. So I came to the conclusion that fasting can have multiple benefits, and there's no reason to feel guilty or to feel shamed for that at all. When Daniel did the fast in the Bible at first, it was for health benefits. It wasn't for spiritual benefits. But then there were also added spiritual benefits. So I can see where Daniel was coming from with doing it for health reasons, but then also being a spiritual thing, and I'm cool with that now. I think you can actually do both. So I actually think Daniel and I have a lot in common between our views of fasting and our relationship with lions. So it's perfectly fine to appreciate the health benefits of everything and the mental benefits and maybe the breaking addiction benefits, but then to also appreciate the spiritual benefits, and when you have those cravings, to use that time to pray and to get closer to God, reading your Bible more, spending time alone with God, listening. But if you are only doing it for the spiritual or for the health benefits, be honest about that too. Honest with yourself. Number 4, it's not a sin to tell people you're fasting. In Jesus' day, many of the spiritual people, the religious people, would fast, and then they would make it known that they were fasting and how much trouble and pain they were going to say, hey everybody, come look at how spiritual I am.
Hey everyone! Come and see how good I look!
So they would moan and complain, but Jesus had something to say about that. And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees it in secret will reward you. Matthew 6:16-18. But that doesn't mean that you need to jump through hoops and even lie to avoid telling people that you're fasting. I've seen that. You're going to notice, especially in your workplace and in public places where you're normally around the same people are going to be a little skeptical, or at least have some questions whenever you refuse that donut, or whenever you are simply not eating lunch, or whenever they see that the things you're eating are very different from what you normally eat. So telling the people you're close to, when it comes to that point, when they ask, I'm not saying that you have to go, again, tell everyone, hey everybody, look how much I'm fasting. You don't have to tell people that, but telling the people that you're close to makes sense on a practical level. Jesus' main concern was bragging about it. And like I always talk about, it's a matter of the heart. So you have to ask yourself why you're telling people you're fasting if you're telling people. But it is not a sin to merely tell people that you are fasting, especially if they ask you. Number 5, you can find systems and routines that help your fast. My wife fully supported the fast for me, and that was extremely helpful. She even kept a pot of like cabbage soup on the stove, almost a revolving pot. I mean, she would wash it and everything and change it out, but almost a revolving pot, just so I always had something to eat whenever I was on the fast. So you can find systems and routines like that that work for you. So here are some things that worked for me. Keep food you can eat readily available. If possible, get rid of the junk food in your home when you start. Always keep things like fruits and nuts with you to avoid temptation. Plan ahead for social events and gatherings to either eat beforehand or bring food with you. So those are the practical things that help me through the fast, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with having these systems and routines in place to help you along. There's nothing wrong with making it a little easier on yourself as long as you're still actually doing it like you set out to do it. And speaking of easier, number 6, it's easier if you follow a plan. I did this with the 21-day Daniel Fast Bible study. It's actually called Fast Like Daniel, and I'll put a link to that below. It helped me to stay on track, it reminded me of what day I was on, and it helped me connect with God and gave me something related to the fast that I was doing to read every morning. And there's plenty of great plans out there. I'll put a link to a few below. If you don't want to do that one, you can pick from one of the other ones, or you can go find your own. But stick to a plan. Number 7, staying disciplined is easier than cheating. Use I don't, not I can't. When you take sugar and processed foods out of your diet, you're going to have cravings, at least in the beginning. Make up your mind in the beginning to say no to all of these temptations. Don't start telling yourself it's okay to cheat here and there. It's just important to know up front that you are not going to cheat at all, because that definitely defeats the purpose of this diet. On the first day that I did this fast, we actually had a going away dinner for a friend of mine. Go figure. And we went to a restaurant that was famous for their chicken and their craft beer. And I liked this restaurant. It wasn't easy, and many people told me that I should make an exception, like, oh, it's day 1, maybe you should start tomorrow, but I was committed and I didn't make an exception. I started on day 1 and I didn't cheat. And I feel like that made me stronger, especially since it was in the very beginning of the fast. There's always going to be something going on. If there's something big on your first day, just know that that's not the only day that you're going to have things going on. They're going to cause you to want to cheat. And each time you say no, you build discipline just like you build a muscle. But when you say, I can't, you're telling yourself that you're depriving yourself of something. By saying, I don't, you're telling yourself that this is just a practice that you hold. It's simply something you don't do. It's not like this is one option that you're saying no to, whether it's a dinner or a snack or whatever. You made up your mind in the beginning that this is something you don't do. You have to see yourself as that person throughout the fast. Taking that identity. You may have heard this called identity-based habits. This works with a lot of other stuff, but specifically for this fast, your identity needs to be that this is what you eat and you don't eat anything differently, at least for the 21 days or however long you plan to do it. And fasting is actually one way to strengthen your self-discipline. So now it's your turn to try it. Even if you've never fasted before or you've never done anything like this, again, check with your doctor, etc., etc. But I do recommend trying this diet. And let me know in the comments if you've tried it and how you liked it, or if you're about to try it, let me know your progress, ask questions about it, I would love to talk about it. Please don't forget to subscribe for more videos on money, minimalism, and our travel journey around the world. If you're interested in raising intentional children, check out my new book, Intentional Children. I'll put a link to that below. That's all for today. I will see you next week.